weight than it is at any other time of the year, just because every single Saturday there's something going on. Maybe, we might have a bye week, but for the most part, there's always something going on, and it's going to be a day-long event most times, so there's hours and hours with foods and drinks that you're exposed to. And, if you do it once in a while, it's not that big of a deal, but when it is every week for how many weeks? Gosh, quite a few months, that can really add up, and then you end up hitting the holidays and you've already kind of gained your holiday weight before they even really hit. So being a little smarter with your choices throughout can help fight off that weight gain. So basically we're going to talk about what you can do before the game time fun, what you do during it, and then also just some healthier food options. Whether you are choosing from food at a party or you're hosting it, you kind of know what some good options are. So beforehand, it's great if you can do some form of exercise. Now, a lot of people will tell me, I do so much walking, I go down to the stadium and I'm going all over the place. And that's awesome, that's great. I know when I do, I can get 4 or 5 miles worth of walking in on my pedometer. But you can always kind of go a step ahead too and try to do some actual formal exercise beforehand, even if it's only 15-20 minutes. Every little bit can help, and it can give you a little bit of a calorie buffer. So not saying that you can say, okay, I worked out this morning, I can have as many wings as I want to, but you can have a little bit of more flexibility with what you're eating then. So, again, it can be something fun with the family beforehand, but it can also be more of an intense activity. As long as you get your body moving, it can be helpful. And also, I find that when I exercise in the morning, it just puts me in the right mindset to make good choices for the rest of the day. It's kind of like you get the day started off with that good thing, and you want it to carry over for the rest of the day. It's kind of like the same thing with breakfast. A lot of times when people eat a healthy breakfast, it actually puts them on track to make healthier choices through the rest of the day. So that would be one good option for you to do. The next one is to be a little diligent with your diet, whether it's the day of. So if it was a late game like last week, making good food choices throughout the day up until, game time or when the festivities start, or also in the days leading up to it as well. So when you eliminate unnecessary extras from your diet, it doesn't, again, give you the right to just go crazy and eat a ton of food, but it helps just offset extra calories, and it gives you a little bit of that calorie buffer. So if you go a little bit overboard on calories, you're still, in terms of overall balance, you're doing good that way. Also, if you are not hosting the party, offer to help your host. So it comes across as being really nice and generous, but it can actually be you can be a little selfish with it, because then you can make something that is at least healthy. So you have one, if nothing else, you have one food option that is good for you at the party. So again, and I'll give you a bunch of ideas as we go on, but my kind of go-to is always just a fresh veggie platter, and it seems so simple, but I'm serious when I say that it's usually one of the first things to be eaten, completely gone at the events, just because I don't know why people like it, but it's great. So again, if you don't have time to make something, you can pick it up at the store, and it's an easy go-to. Also, have something to eat before you go, whether it's the tailgate downtown or you go over to somebody's house. Have either a meal or a snack, depending on what time of day it is. And this can help kind of minimize the temptation of all of those foods. So think about when you wait too long to eat and then you're exposed to food, what do? You eat way too much, and probably of the not the best choices either. So we eat too much, and we eat too much of the kind of not so great stuff. So it's a little bit of a double whammy. So when you can do that, it helps curb your hunger. So you do have a little bit more willpower in resisting, maybe not, completely foregoing the food, but in terms of portion control, you're going to do a little bit better there. Questions about pregame plans? Okay. All right. So our first game time strategy has to do with what we're drinking, okay? So, and we'll start with kind of adult beverages, okay? So here's the thing, if you think about, okay, football games are 3 or 4 hours long, plus then you have the tailgate beforehand. And so we're looking at, and again, depending on the time of day, if it's an 11:30 game, people are starting to drink super early, they're gonna be doing it all day. And so not only are you getting a lot of calories from the alcohol itself, but the more you drink, the lower your inhibitions are to make just smart choices in general, but also smart food choices. So that's why, it's like, when it's 2 a.m. on a Friday night, Amigos just has a line just backed up because, It's we've had too much to drink, and that's what we do. So, but just in general, people just tend to overeat a little bit too much when they have had too much to drink too. So not only you're getting those calories from the drinks, but then you're getting the extra calories from the food too. So again, a double whammy. So what is recommended, go ahead and laugh when we go over this because I get laughed at all the time for it, but the recommendation really for health is men should have no more than 2 drinks per day, women no more than 1 drink per day. And so especially when I think about, again, a football Saturday for any, exactly, yes. So I rest my case. That may not be realistic for you. If it's not, I totally understand. But if you can at least slow down your pace, you're going to be doing yourself a favor. So instead of just, beer after beer after beer, try to alternate an alcoholic beverage with a non-alcoholic beverage. And so that'll at least, again, slow down your pace. But also, because hangovers a lot of times are the result of dehydration, that extra water is going to help hydrate you. And help maybe make you not feel so bad the next day. So there's a couple good spots to that. So what does 1 drink equal? It's 12 ounces of beer, okay? 1 to 1.5 ounces of liquor. It just depends kind of on the strength. So it's about a shot worth of hard liquor. And then 5 ounces of wine, which is a little over a half of a cup. Okay, so just to kind of give you an idea of what those are. Okay, so moving on, what are some smart choices of those adult beverages? You can do some of the light or lower calorie beers. I mean, there's so many now out there that I can't even keep them all straight. So, I mean, they go as low as what, like 55 maybe, or maybe even lower? I don't know. I'm not a beer expert. So it doesn't have to be the lowest one there. There's even a Bud Light has, I think, 100 or 110 calories in it versus the regular stuff is a little bit higher. So doing that with liquor, hard liquor, the big key here is not necessarily the type that you're having, but what you're mixing it with, okay? So if you're doing it with cranberry juice or some sort of regular soda or, higher calorie drink, that's gonna really make the calories go up. So that shot or, the amount of alcohol probably has between 100 and 150 calories, but then when you add a cup of, soda or the juice and that sort of thing, that's adding another 100 calories. So you're looking at more like 250 calories instead, okay? And that's if they stick to the, 1 ounce serving. So if you have a bartender that likes you, then it might be a little bit higher in calories, okay? You might get 3 drinks in 1 glass too, so you'd be done for the day. But that's a good option there. And then with wine, calorie-wise, they're not gonna be all that different in terms of what's good for your heart too. Really, I mean, wine can just be beneficial. It's that moderation thing. Once you go over that moderation, then it can actually have the detrimental effects. But the big thing with wine that you want to pay attention to is the serving size, because people tell me I have, this isn't really related to football, but I have a glass of wine at night, it's great for my heart, and then we get to talking and their wine goblets, like, it's so big that they can fit like 3 or 4 servings of wine in it. So, what was maybe 120 calorie something, good for your health ended up being a 300 plus calorie, not so good thing for my health. So, and it's hard to judge sometimes too. I mean, if I go downtown and have a glass of wine, sometimes it just comes in like a big old like bar glass that you have no idea, it's hard to judge how much it is. So just really kind of, try to be careful in terms of what does a half cup look like. It's about the size of what half of a baseball would be. So you can have a little bit bigger portion of that, and that's what 1 serving would be. But that's kind of the thing you want to look for with wine. Now with non-alcoholic beverages too, really just opt for the non-calorie ones, okay? You're going to be getting not tons, but plenty of calories from the food and the adult beverages that you really don't need to, get any extra from those sugary drinks. So, unsweetened iced tea, diet sodas, sparkling ice water, those are all great options. You can even do plain water and then get some fruit or veggie slices and serve them that way. And that's really popular when you can do the infusion ones. They look really pretty and just tend to draw people there because they just are that appealing. So those are all good options there. All right, next strategy is really a focus on moderation. And this is really honestly my favorite slide out of the whole probably presentation, because these are things that I try to live by every day of the year, not just necessarily at football parties or any kind of get together, just because when you do incorporate them into your daily routine, you can really enjoy the foods that you have, and it's it just makes the moderation piece easier. So you don't have to worry so much about, oh, is this bad? If it's because it's not too much of anything. So one is use a plate for everything, okay? So rather than going over to the table and getting a handful of chips and then going back a few minutes later and getting another handful of chips and that kind of thing, it's hard to gauge how much you're actually eating when you do that. So put everything on a plate, and so you'll be less likely to eat quite as often, and you will be tend to serve yourself less as well. You get bonus points if you downsize your plate, so if you get the smallest plate possible. Has anybody ever heard of this recommendation? Okay, so it seems kind of silly, but research has shown that it is incredibly effective in helping people reduce their calorie intake. Because one, when you downsize your plate, you obviously can't serve yourself as much food, so that's portion control helping there. But also, visually, it's much more satisfying because you can put the same amount of food on those two separate plates, those two different sizes, and the smaller one looks like it's just overflowing with food. The small one looks like you don't hardly have anything on there, so you're going to feel more unsatisfied with that big plate versus the small plate. You're like, holy cow, I'm getting all this food, how am I going to eat all of it, sort of thing. So it's actually been shown to help people eat 20 to 30% less calories when they use this. So again, it's just easy portion control there. And then really this one is kind of what I live by, the choose the best and leave the rest, okay? So before you fill your plate with any food, take a look and see what's being offered, okay? Don't just start to haphazardly fill your plate and then, end up with an overloaded plate because everything looked good. Look it over and then find a couple of your favorites. You can have those and then try to pick healthier options to fill the rest of your plate, okay? And really, so often people will just kind of eat the food because it's there. They're just like, okay, I'll have some of this, I'll have some of that, and it's really not all that good. But then they'll continue eating it until it's all gone. But I say, why waste calories on something you don't love? So for me, if I don't love it, I'm not going to eat it. And again, this is whether it's at a party or any day of the year. So make sure you enjoy the food. There's no sense in giving your body those extra calories if you're not really going to enjoy it. So make it worth it. So a good way to know that is to ask yourself, if this, pumpkin pie, okay, we're getting to that season, if it was a mile down the road, would I walk that far for it? And I personally would totally do that for a piece of pumpkin pie. But if we talked about something else, maybe German chocolate cake, I'm not a big fan, so I'd totally not walk a mile for that, okay? So that kind of helps you know whether you love it or not so much love it, okay? So again, some good strategies for moderation there. All right, next are just some more tactics just to help you kind of keep you from mindlessly grazing all day, because people tend to just keep making their way over to the food table regardless of whether they're hungry or not. So one is to just be a social butterfly. That's really, when you're getting together for these games, it's not necessarily about the food. It's a great perk of it, but it's not the reason you're getting together. So enjoy the game, enjoy the people that you're spending time with, and really just, again, spend time chit-chatting with them. And then also, if you can try to stay away from the buffet table, it makes it a little bit easier for you to resist temptation, because the table's right here and I'm standing here, it's so easy for me just to keep grabbing and grabbing and grabbing, versus if it's over there and it's just not quite so easily accessible, so I probably won't be making as many trips over there, okay? Also, make it inconvenient to eat. So if you're outside, you can do yard games, you can throw, a football around, a frisbee, there's babies around, hold them, do whatever you can if you can keep your hands busy. That's helpful. Also, I use what I call food decoys. So if it's a piece of hard candy, a mint, a piece of gum, even, holding a non-calorie beverage, all of those things are going to kind of help deter you away from eating something. Okay. Also, try to get some support. So if you have a spouse or a friend or a family member that is at the party and knows that you're trying to eat healthier, really rely on them to keep you accountable. And you can even do, because some people are great about keeping each other accountable, but other ones are like, well, I'll do it if you do it, and so that kind of thing. So if that's maybe where you guys are at, then it might be fun to have actually more of a little bit of a competition. Like, okay, if you stray and do, whatever, you kind of call the criteria. But if you do this, then you owe me $10 or something that you really don't want to do. So then that way that helps motivate you to stay on track a little bit more too. So, and if you're a competitive person, that's probably a really good one for you to do. All right, so now we're just going to talk more about some healthier food options. And And I promise they're not like all tofu and that kind of thing too. There's some actual good stuff, okay? So I'm taking a lot of traditional tailgate football party foods and then just showing you how to make better choices within them, okay? So starting off with burgers, you can do lean beef, so at least 90% lean, or ground turkey. Those are both good options. I don't know, I was raised on beef, so I'm kind of a beef girl, but if you like ground turkey, they're both good options. A lot of people will tend to think that ground turkey is superior to the beef, but it's really not. If you would compare the nutrition profile between the two, there's not a whole lot, maybe 10 or 20 calories difference in 1 or 2 grams of fat in the same serving size. So for me, I'm going to choose the lean beef. You can also do portobello burgers. Those are really great, and then put a slice of cheese on it for a little bit of protein. Good options. And what I like to do with lean beef too, I forgot to mention, is that I'll put a little chopped onion, and then, oh gosh, this is the hardest word for me to pronounce, Worcestershire sauce. I'll put a little bit of that in there. Helps add good flavor to it and give it a little bit more moisture as well, so it helps turn out really great. And then regardless of what type of burger you're choosing, really do watch the size of the buns, because they can vary anywhere from 110 calories to 250 calories. So it's like the really big ones, you're eating like 3 bites before you actually get to of the bun before you get to the burger. Look for the smaller ones, okay? Because again, it may seem like 100 or 150 calories isn't that big of a deal, but little things add up, okay? That many calories extra every day for a month is a pound of weight gained, okay? So again, try to downsize your bun. And then with hot dogs and brats, now these won't ever be on my list of superfoods for sure, something that's really a healthy choice, but I know realistically people are going to have these at tailgates. So what can you do to make better choices? You can do anything that's light or low fat or some sort of poultry frank. Those tend to be lower in calories and fat, okay? These, and really saturated fat, because that's kind of where the downfall of these products are, is that they're very high in those. Some brats can have almost a half of a day's worth of saturated fat. So really trying to minimize those with those light choices is great. It's really hard to find a low sodium hot dog or brat, just because they are processed meats, and so they are going to be higher in sodium. So you will be doing good if you find one that has less than 400 milligrams of sodium in them. I really can't, I've had issues finding them any lower than that. So, and I've looked a lot. So you're going to be doing good if you kind of follow that criteria. If you're wondering what brands meet that criteria, on the education piece that I have, which is just over on the table with the food, it has some different brands that fit the bill for that. So make sure you grab one of those before you go, and then that'll give you some good ideas there. All right, so next, some other grilling options. Steaks. The easiest way to know if it's a lean choice is if it has the words round or loin in it, okay? So like a top sirloin steak would be great, okay? That's not gonna be get all of the lean cuts, but it's gonna get a large majority of them. Some other ones that don't necessarily have those code words in there are flank steak, strip steak, and T-bone steak. Those are all good options as well. So again, keeping it leaner, those are all good. For pork, the code words are loin or shoulder, okay? If they have those words in there, then they are typically a leaner meat, okay? So like pork tenderloin is a really great one. And center cut pork chops are also good, okay? With poultry, people tend to think that white meat is like the gold standard. True, yes, it is lower in calories and fat than what the dark meat is, but the amount is actually kind of surprising. Any guesses on what the calorie difference would be for a 4-ounce serving between the two? It's less than 50, so it's typically about 30 to 40 calories for a 4-ounce serving. So really the key when you're making your poultry choices is to take that skin off, because that's where all of the saturated fat and the sodium lies, okay? I know it's the best part, I know, I'm well aware, but I'm letting you have dark meat, so I figure it's a fair trade, okay? And then I know wings are a big football thing too, and again, these can be very high in fat just before you even dip any dressing, into any dressing and that sort of thing. So what I will do with these is I just will marinate some diced chicken breast in some of the wing sauce and then grill it on kebabs, and then you're still getting some of that good buffalo flavor. It's not exactly the same, but again, I'm not necessarily depriving you of your wing sauce and that sort of thing. So those are some good options. Sandwich ideas. Pulled pork would be great if you use pork tenderloin. Okay, pork tenderloin is one of the leanest meats out there. So you could do that. You could also use some chicken and then just toss it in some barbecue sauce, have it in a crock pot. If you're doing more of the sub sandwiches wrap sort of thing, the key lies in what types of meats you're choosing. So try to stay away from that bologna, pastrami, salami, and choose more of the leaner cuts. So turkey, roast beef, ham, chicken, those are all good. It depends, if you're making these, you can choose whole grain if you're, getting them ordered in. Not a lot of places will have whole grain varieties. So if you can't do it, that's fine, but it's always better if you can. And then watch the condiments that you're using, so lower calorie ones. Even doing a light mayo instead of a full fat mayo can save you, 50 plus calories. Mustard's an even better option, or doing some of the vinaigrette dressings too are really good. And then put some veggies on it. Honestly, I feel like that is one of the best ways to add flavor and texture to a sandwich, and people typically enjoy that, as long as you're not putting some really weird stuff on there. If you kind of keep it basic, they typically don't mind. And it's something too where it's easy to pull off a tomato or some green peppers and that sort of thing if you don't like it. All right, next we have just some kind of snack items. So I mentioned before my go-to veggie platter. It's, obviously very easy. You can, if you're doing it yourself, I will typically do like baby carrots and cherry tomatoes and things like that I don't have to do a whole lot of cutting and prepping for. I can't really get around bell peppers and that sort of thing, but you can minimize your work that way. And then for dips, you could either do hummus dip or a low-cal dip with a sour cream dip with some ranch flavoring in it. You may have heard of using plain yogurt in place of sour cream. Has anybody heard of that recommendation before? So you can do that with this, and there are some people that won't even taste the difference. There's some people that will be able to. I am one of those people that I can taste the difference, but I don't necessarily mind it. So if you're worried about, you're taking it somewhere and you're worried about whether or not people will like it, try doing half and half. So a cup of the low-fat sour cream and a cup of the plain yogurt, and then it'll still have some of the taste of that sour cream, and it'll help offset any differences in flavor. Or you can try it out yourself too, and then if you want to go completely with the Greek yogurt, it's not a bad tasting dip. Has anybody actually went ahead and tried that? Yeah. How did you like it? Yeah. So you can save a ton of calories that way. Again, fresh fruit trays. So we had fruit kebabs today, which were beautiful. So that's great. And these typically are great alone. You don't necessarily need any kind of dips with it. But if you are looking for an easy, healthy one, just get some vanilla yogurt, and then I will sprinkle a little cinnamon in it. Sometimes if I'm feeling like a next little splurge worthy, I will put a little bit of brown sugar in it just to help sweeten it up just a little bit more, but you really honestly don't even need that. But again, it's an option. For chips and dip, okay, if you are doing whole grain corn tortilla chips, that's great. You can do that with salsa or guacamole. Typically, I will say if you're gonna have kind of higher calorie dip, try to do a low calorie dipper, or vice versa. So if the dipper is a little higher in calories, try to do lower calorie dips. So with guac, I typically say it's better to do it with like bell pepper strips, because the guac, even though it's a healthy fat, it is a little bit higher in calories. So bell peppers have next to like no calories in it, like 20 calories a cup, so it helps offset that. Salsa, for 1/4 of a cup, has like 20 calories, so you could have maybe the chips, which are a little bit higher in calories, so it helps balance it out a little bit more. But any of those would be good choices. Bean dip is another good choice, okay? If you're doing, and has anybody here tried hummus? I know I mentioned it with the veggie platter, so that is a great dip. So you can do it with the veggies. You can also do pita chips. Now, Whitney she baked the just actual pita bread, so that's awesome. If you don't have time to do that, they do have the packaged ones too, but hers are probably better, I'm not gonna lie. So to each their own, whatever you wanna do there. And then I have a really easy fruit salsa recipe that I will make up, and people just go nuts over it. You can buy it, of course, at the store, but if you are looking for a good recipe, let me know, and I'm more than happy to email it to you, because it literally takes 15 minutes to cut the stuff up and mix it up, and people go crazy over it. And then I typically will serve it with cinnamon pita chips. You can buy those, but again, you can make those at home, and you could use either the pita chips, or you could do tortilla chips, or tortillas, and then just spray a little non-fat cooking spray on it, and then a little cinnamon and sugar, and you can do the homemade version. So either one would work just fine, but they're all good options. Okay, tip-wise, just no dips. You can kind of go two ways here. Try to do a lower fat, lower calorie one. I'm sorry, can you see? I'm totally in your way. So lower calorie, lower fat, or you can also do some that have some sort of nutrition value in them too. So the first ones I have are like pop chips, okay? Have you guys heard of those? Okay, so instead of baking chips, they pop them like popcorn. So they have a little bit more crispier, a little bit thicker texture. They're really good. I'm kind of addicted to them. You can also do just the baked ones. So Lay's has some baked varieties. There's kettle baked. Those are all good. Sensible Portions and veggie straws, if you've heard of those. So they're kind of like, they look like French fries, but they're more in the, those are tend to be baked and lower calorie as well. Let's see. Oh, and I said the baked Lay's as well. So, and Food Should Taste Good is just another lower calorie one. Typically, I think I've seen those at Super Target, but more often at Hy-Vee. Okay. If you're looking for a wide variety of chips, Hy-Vee is really, I mean, not to say that I favor it by any means, but it does have a good variety of healthier kind of chip options, especially when we go to the next category. So if you can do ones that have some sort of whole grains or some sort of fiber in them, that's even better. So Sun Chips are actually whole grain, which girl ever. So I knew it's, you know, I could have, what? What are they? Sun Chips are made with whole grains. Oh. So, yeah, I know. You can also do black bean chips, okay? So Benito's is a really great brand that they have a little bit of spice with them too. They're really great. There's hummus chips, there's lentil chips, there's quinoa chips. And really with all of those, they're not, you know, again, going to be superfoods, but they tend to be a little bit higher in fiber and protein, so you're at least getting some good for you things in those, okay? Popcorn wise, you know, the stuff that they serve in the stadium probably isn't the healthiest of options, but what you're serving too can always not be the healthiest either. So when you get the movie theater style butter popcorns, those can be really high in calories. So doing the light microwave or air popped, or getting the pre-popped bagged popcorn. I really love the Smart Foods sea salt. So a lot of people know about the Smart Foods white cheddar. They're like, I love that one. That one's not quite as good of a choice as the sea salt one. It's really, really good. Each cup has like 35 calories in it. So, and popcorn's a whole grain too. So that's great. But I have some other varieties on there too. So Colby Ridge, Skinny Pop, Indiana Fit Popcorn is another brand that people tend to really enjoy too. Okay. So, but the key is just low fat or air popped. All right, now if we're ordering pizza, there's just a few steps that you can make, and this goes for whether you're making it at home or ordering it, okay? Ideally, we do want that whole grain crust to get that fiber boost, but if you're ordering it, it's not the easiest to find, and even if you're making it at home, unless you're making it from scratch, you don't have a whole lot of options either. I think it's Pillsbury actually has a whole grain refrigerated crust that is really good, but I can't always find it everywhere. It's kind of sporadic where I can and cannot find it. So if you can't do that, doing a thin crust or at least a hand toss when you're ordering out over the deep dish or the pan is going to be better because it's going to have less of that fat. I know those crusts are delicious, but they also have a lot of calories and a lot of fat in them. Okay. With sauce-wise, as long as you're going with a red sauce over a buttery white sauce or a white sauce, it's going to be a better option. Very low in calories. Cheese-wise, just don't go crazy with it. You know, cheese can be a good source of calcium, but they tend to over cheese it, in my opinion. So you can ask them to go lighter on the cheese, or if you make it at home, you can control how much you're using. You can use lower fat cheeses if you're making it. Some people don't care for low fat. I like low fat, not necessarily fat-free. Fat-free doesn't melt very good. But I have found that if you're putting it on a pizza and you spray it with non-stick cooking spray, it actually helps it melt better. So if you want to try that, sometime you can, but low fat is just fine. If you are someone that does not like the reduced fat ones, you can also use some of the strong flavored cheeses that are out there. So like Parmesan or feta cheese, they're really great on pizza. And because they're so strong flavored, you can actually cut back on how much you use and you won't even be sacrificing flavor at all. So those are some good options. And then just with toppings, just choose the lower calorie ones. So we know veggies, I mean, across the board are going to be good. So I've converted quite a few people to veggie pizza lovers. I even converted, it was like an 85-year-old man to it one time. I promise it is good. And then, you know, you can add some lean meats to it as well. So chicken, Canadian bacon, or lean beef. You can do turkey sausage as well. Those would all be just fine options there. Oh, and one thing I did want to point out too, with the thin crust and the hand tossed, those are, like I said, both good options. The thin crust will be lower in calories per slice, but it's not as filling either. So it's kind of, you know, a toss-up which one is better. So if you have to eat like 6 pieces of the thin crust in order to get full, but you'd be satisfied with 2 or 3 of the hand tossed, you'd probably be better off with the hand tossed. So kind of keep that in mind too when you're picking your pizzas. All right, now chili, I know today's beautiful, But again, a week ago, I made chili for last week's game, and we're going to be getting there where it's going to be getting colder. So as you start to make your chilies, keep some things in mind. Again, doing a lean ground beef, lean turkey, those are good options. And then to boost the fiber content, you can cut back on the amount of meat that's used, so if you're not sick the next day necessarily. All right, and I think that was, I didn't even make a question slide, but does anybody have questions for me? That's kind of the gist of it. It can be over what we talked about today, or it can be something different as well. It could be a little off track.
Is there anything, any food that would suppress alcohol
not that I'm aware of, no. But if you can drink or eat, like when you're drinking, if you can eat something with it, that helps a little bit, so you're not so easily influenced by it. So, but yeah, I'd be rich. I'll get right on that this afternoon. Anybody else?
I've been reading lately that there's recent studies out that say that we kind of overdid the too much sodium discussion. Have you been reading some of that too? That maybe.
Yeah, with the sodium piece, in terms of what's recommended, is the dietary guidelines say that people that have high blood pressure or over the age of 51 should limit their intake to 1,500 milligrams per day. Anybody else can just try to stick to 2,300 milligrams per day. However, there's also research just because there's that connection between the sodium and high blood pressure, but there is also research to show that not everybody is salt sensitive with the blood pressure. So meaning that they can, in terms of how much sodium they take in, it will not necessarily impact their blood pressure. And there's actually, one of the professors at UNL has done some research on this. And so when I was in college, I got to hear a lot about it. And so I do feel like it's an individual thing. I mean, honestly, I don't pay personally don't pay that much attention to sodium because if I'm having a bad day, my top number will hit 100. I just have super low blood pressure, always have. My mom's the same way, so it's more of a genetic thing. So sodium-wise, I could probably not get by with not watching it, but there are some people that they are overly sensitive to it, or they have a family history of it. And for them, I would say, yeah, do pay attention to it. So I think it's more of an individual thing versus, in general, they can give that recommendation, but just like with anything else, you have to figure out what is best for you and what works best for you. So, yeah, honestly, anything in the nutrition world, you'll hear one thing one day and the opposite the next day. So it is hard to keep it straight. Anybody else? No? Okay, well, thank you guys so much for having me. Be sure to take one of the handouts because it does give a good recap of the presentation today along with the healthy ideas. And then, I'm not sure if, or you could always, do you have the recipe handout too? Because you can always email that out too. So like the spinach dip that you had today, if you've tried that, that recipe's on there. The healthy chili recipe that, again, I've fooled many people with, that's on there. And then, what else did I put on there? Oh, the chocolate banana brownie thing, so, which are really good too. Yes, she will. Oh, the fruit salsa, I'll send that one to you, and then that way you can send it all out together. Yep, I'll do that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming.